here. I'm Lauren. With me here is Julie. Typically, we're in two different places, but I'm in San Francisco today. And we have some teachers with us, both of which are Erin Thomas. Just a happy coincidence. And we're going to talk a little bit about flex classes and how to make sure that they are interactive. And both of these teachers use Outschool's platform. And so they might have some tips about how to do that effectively. But before we get into that, we're just going to kind of go through a few of the changes that are coming up to kind of remind people about what those might be. And then we'll have the two Erins introduce themselves and get started. If you have questions at all along the way, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can use chat as well, but the Q&A is a little bit smoother and easier for us to manage a little bit. And then we will try to answer those as soon as we can. So some of the changes that we're making to flex classes, as you all know, we've decided to make some changes because we were seeing some issues like lower ratings and feedback to our support team along those lines. And so by September 1st, everyone needs to make sure that their classes are interactive and not just a truly self-paced class where kids submit work or the teacher only talks to them when it's, you know, feedback on homework or something like that. We are in the process of looking through our flex classes, which is actually a lot more than I thought. So we are bit by bit going through them. So if we see any issues, we actually will reach out to you. But if you can go ahead and make changes if you know they are needed, that would be awesome. The interaction that we're looking for, we do, first of all, understand that not everybody's going to interact. Even if we make it, you know, I hate to say requirement, but make it part of the class, we know that some are going to choose not to participate. And really, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. That's their choice, and if that's what they do, as long as you're making the effort to make a class interactive and trying to engage the kid or the family, that is what we hope for. And there's a number of ways you can make classes interactive, and hopefully our teachers will help us with some of those things, but it can be anything from like a discussion in the classroom or analyzing something as a group, students contributing work and maybe critiquing each other's or giving feedback. It seems to be best when students can interact with each other, but again, that's not always necessarily a guaranteed outcome. And then in January of 2020, we will require that all flex class and communications with the class be on Outschool. You can use outside tools to still enhance your class, but we want announcements, assignments, conversations with the family and student to be on our platform and to have kind of insight into what is going on with the classes. And then Outschool will make some changes as well. We're going to cap flex classes at 18 students. The refund policy will be our flexible refund policy, which means that they'll get a prorated refund. So you probably want to make sure you're not just dumping all the information on the very first day. You're doing it over time. And that's a way to kind of keep people engaged as well. And we have added some clarification to some of our documents that make sure that people hopefully have a better understanding of them, and we are deciding on and trying to implement classroom improvements. We don't exactly know what those are going to be yet. We are still seeking help and suggestions from our teachers. So if you have that, emailing them to support would be best. So support@outschool.com, and we're creating kind of an idea board and seeing what we can do in the next 6 months. So that's kind of the lowdown, I guess, on the changes that we are implementing. And so now I'm going to have our teachers introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, like how long you've been on Outschool and what you teach. And then maybe a little bit about your experience with flex classes, what got you started, maybe what you see as something that works well for you or something along those lines. And so let's start with Erin Thomas. I believe Erin teaches only flex classes on Outschool. So can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Erin Thomas. I live in Ohio. I'm a homeschooling mom. I have two kids, 13 and 10. I actually was doing live classes, but then I started doing flex classes for just a number of reasons. The main one was just for my schedule because it was difficult getting requests for all kinds of different times. And I'm an audiologist, and so I still work, and I work in the school system, and I work in a clinical setting. And so it was really difficult to try to accommodate those kind of requests because some of them are all over the place, and I really don't have time to just teach one learner in a live class and maybe set aside that time and them not show up. So I'm like, how can I still be able to teach because I love it, but make it, work for me? So flex classes were a great way to do that. And I really, really enjoy them. I've met kids from all over the world, and the great part is I think that they get to meet each other. I mean, I've had kids in the same class. I mean, if I always cap my classes at 12, so, and sometimes it's a full class. I've had kids from Australia, Japan. One time there was also a child from Ireland in the same class. And so those kids never would have been together in a live class just because of time differences. So it worked out perfectly, and they were able to share different things. And that class was a zoology class, so they were able to share different things about, the place they live and the animals that are there. So that works out really well. I teach a lot of probably more on the line of social studies and science type classes. I'm not really a math person at all. Never teach a math class and never find that. But I've always enjoyed social studies, science, and so that just kind of works out for me. And I try to follow the same format with all my flex classes. So some of the students, have a lot of returning students. They kind of already know what the format's going to be. But as you get to know them better, there's more interaction, and they'll ask me questions about what I was doing this summer, when they see me again in the classroom. So, and sometimes we'll do like a little video back and forth. So that works out pretty well. But I also teach on VIP Kid as well. I know a lot of teachers do. So I do that as well. So the main thing is flex classes just really help me with my schedule because it's so busy.
Nice, yeah. And Erin Girard, can you introduce yourself as well? A little bit about yourself, what you teach, and your approach with flex classes?
Sure. My name is Erin Girard, and I live in Santa Cruz, California, so just south of Outschool. And I have two daughters. They are twins. And my husband does a lot of traveling with his job, and like I said, I homeschool them. So the flex classes work, as Erin already mentioned. We have a busy schedule, and we like to be out and about. And my primary job is as a mom and homeschool mom, is to teach my own children. So making sure that I fit my live classes and my flex classes in our schedule. My flex classes are all 4 weeks long, and they follow the same format. Sorry, I'm on vacation, so I don't have my normal headset with me. And it's 6:15 here, so it's a little early. So I do a lot of video. So when my students post or I'm posting an assignment or a discussion, I try to record myself. I love that little tab in the classroom where it says, record video. And so I use that a lot, and I model that. I explain to my students how to do that. And so a lot of times they respond that way. And I make sure to say to post pictures, post videos. And in my pre-recorded videos, all the classes are broken up. And I have pre-recorded videos as well as discussion posts. And I say in my videos, I have a tag. My one line that I use in all my classes is, so we may learn from you. And so that I'm encouraging them to teach us. I'm just going to take these off. Sorry. I'm being away from home, and technology can be interesting. So I use a lot of video, and I really like that. And it also allows for me to teach students from all over the world. I've had students from Azerbaijan. I've had students, in that class there was a student from Italy and one from Texas. So again, pretty diverse situations. I teach nature classes. And then one that I guess you could call kind of social studies, which is, I call it Road Trip USA. And we learn about different national parks and different historical places in our country, and cooking and reading classes.
Nice. I'm gonna just kind of piggyback on something Erin said with our next question. You mentioned that you say that so we can learn from you. Do you have any tips about writing a good description so that it's clear what your flex class will look like? Because there has been that kind of difficulty for parents to really understand the difference between the two. And I'll start with Erin Girard, and we'll go to Erin Thomas after.
For me, I try to maybe give too much information. I want to paint a clear picture, so I will break down the weeks of what we're going to do. And that's something that's evolved over time as I've attended the veterans teacher meetings with Laura, and talking with the other teachers, looking at classes for my own children, and looking at the wordage. So I try to give as much detail and set the expectations. I also use Bloom's taxonomy for what I expect the students to be able to do at the end of the class. And again, just reiterate in my classroom about their participation and how for them to be involved.
I think if I remember correctly, Erin, you have like a paragraph at the end that kind of explains what a flex class is and how you will make it into, or how it will be carried out. Is that right? Mm-hmm.
It is, and I also have a video that I made called What is a Flex Class? Because so many of us are doing flex classes, and we all have different experiences. We all have different approaches and methodologies. I wanted it to be clear what was expected. And that's actually something that this fall I'm going to be reworking as I just evolve as a teacher. I've been with Outschool, I forgot to mention that, since I taught my first classes in mid-September of this last fall. And so what I do is I post that link of what is a flex class with a brief explanation in the classroom, or I send it to parents in the message so that they know ahead of time.
Nice, that's an excellent idea. Erin Thomas, could you tell us about how you write your descriptions?
Yeah, so I do something similar to the other Erin. I try to make it very clear there are no live meetings. I have a blurb. I put the same thing in every class. And I just highlight the fact that this allows the students to work at their own pace. They can do it, through their own convenience, and have just a little explanation of what that looks like. And I also break it down by week, like this is what we're doing this week, the next week. And something I've started doing recently is, it's pretty much the same message. I might change a few things, but I've been sending like personal messages to each of the parents, just saying, I just want to make sure you understand, this is a flex class. I started doing that because I would have parents, especially people that were new to Outschool, they would always try to hit live meeting. And then I'm getting these emails, I can't get into any of the meetings. I'm like, well, you don't want to. So I make sure I always say, you don't push that button at the top because nothing's going to happen. So just reiterating, and that's been good. I've gotten good feedback that, they appreciate that. And like Erin said, I probably don't use the record button quite as much as she does, but I am looking to implement that a little more in the fall. Sometimes I'll just get on there and say, I have a roller coaster class, like physics type thing. And I'll just get on there if we've been to the amusement park and just say, hey, we're at the amusement park, just to kind of check in. But really, I do try now to send the parents a message and make sure that they know this is what this is how it's going to break down, because I tell them, on a Sunday or Monday, I'm going to upload the presentation, the pre-recorded presentation. On Wednesday, this is going to happen. Towards the end of the week, this is what's going to happen. So every week, and they're all 4 weeks except for one class, that's how that's going to happen. Just to get the expectations out there and make sure we clear up any, miscommunication at the beginning rather than in the middle. That's just something you learn after doing it a long time.
Okay.
Can I add something real quick? If you don't mind. One of the other things I started doing late winter, beginning of spring is posting a schedule when the class first starts. And it's really just simple. It's a table. This one has my notes on it as I'm scribbling from students, but it's basically Monday through Friday. And it tells me what I'm posting, and so they know. So it'll say discussion post, or it's going to say introduction to road trip video, Yosemite video, so that they know what is going to be happening each day. And I also tell them in the classroom is that this is a flexible schedule class. I will post on a schedule, but everyone's life is different and schedules are different, so to do the work as they can. And like Erin Thomas, when I start my class after my first post, I'll message parents beforehand, but I message on the first day of class, and then I try to message the parents on Fridays as well as checking in and at the end of class, just for my communication, making sure if they have any questions and things like that.
You guys are so good at segueing into the next question for me. You guys are awesome. It's like we, practice this. But in terms of like making sure that you are connecting in your class, how do you try to, or how do you, I should say, kind of keep track of, who have you responded to, or who still needs to be responded to, or when do you need to post another class? Because I think a lot of people are concerned, I guess, in part because we don't have a classroom now, especially, that is very very easy to kind of track that stuff. So since both of you use the Outschool classroom, could you talk a little bit about how you keep track of those things and make sure that you are checking in and hitting everyone and stuff like that? Erin Thomas, can I have you start?
Yeah, I check in every day, usually in the evenings, once once my days kind of slowed down, I check in the evening. A lot of times the students, I would say 70% of them just post their answers right on the Outschool in the classroom. So I check through that. Some of them, if they're a little shy, they'll send me a message within the classroom on the Learners tab. So I always check in there to make sure no one's sent me a message. But that's only I would say 10 to 20% of them do that. I have a Gmail account that I use exclusively for Outschool, especially if the student has a big file they want to send me and they can't send it through the Outschool mail. We always do a project, and some of them make very elaborate projects. So I'll tell the parent, just send it to me through the Gmail. So, I check all of those places, and keeping track of their work, I just have a Google Cloud spreadsheet that I use to keep track. I mean, it's the same spreadsheet for every class. I just put their names in. And I always tell parents, that's another thing I tell them in my introduction, especially for homeschoolers, you're running the show here, not me. You're the homeschool mom. If your student has worked, your child better than I do. If your child has worked to their potential and you are satisfied with what they were able to accomplish, then just let me know. I mean, they don't have to finish every single thing, but if they do, that's great. I have some that are real go-getters, but some kids, the parent will message me and say, they've been working really hard on this, but I think this is as much as they can do. Because I always, when they're done, if they want to, most people don't want to grade, but a lot of the parents, I'll say, I'll send you a certificate when class is over, if you want that. But it's up to you when you feel that threshold has been reached. So.
Awesome. So you mentioned having them send files to Gmail if they're too large. In the future, we hope that would be one of those things that's on the classroom.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe Julie can answer this better because I know I can't. But we can pass along, the need for those bigger files. But if there's a reason that we have them smaller, is it too much bandwidth or something?
Yeah, I think that it's just we use another service to host the files, so it would just be expanding that a little bit, and there just hasn't been a need to do that previously, but now because there's so many teachers and you're creating so much robust material, and especially with the rise of classes and people doing longer videos, that sort of stuff is becoming more and more necessary. So it's just a little bit of a growing pain that we need to work out somehow, but
yeah, and like we said, there's creating a ideas board. And so that is, I don't know if it's already on there, but Julie and I can hear from this that we put it on there. Erin Girard, your thoughts on how to keep track of things using the Outschool?
I am going to run and get my cord while she answers. I'll be right back.
So I utilize the email notifications. So I know I'll click on the email and go to the classroom. And yes, we have a glorified discussion board in our classroom. And it's hard when it's a very chatty class. I have one right now that I did miss 2 posts from students that I did end up responding. I try to respond the day of. I tell parents that I will post by 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I will check in throughout the day, just keep my email clear, but usually more in the evenings, and because I like to respond with videos to my students, but then I delete that email. So I use the email as kind of my notification, and then I make sure I go through and that I've responded to every student that day. And then knowing what to post, I showed you I have all these, and that helps because right now I have 5 flex classes going, and I've had, for me, the most I've done, I think, was 9 or 10 this spring. And so it helps. I just go through and I make notes, and I also add anything I need about students to my checklist, and then keep track of all that.
All right. So Erin, just for a little clarification, with the calendars that you create, do you have one for each section or just each different class? So you kind of have a consistent plan.
I have it, I call them my class plans. And so I give the parents, the students, the class plan during the first meeting, if not beforehand, just so they set the expectations. So they know, okay, next week we are going to be reading books on nonfiction for my 21-day reading challenge. And so they know what's happening each day. Or my 21-day nature class is one that I'm teaching a younger and older section of. And it just keeps track, and it keeps me accountable too. It's like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And just making sure that I don't miss up my posts. And then for my challenge classes or even my cooking classes, I try to post like almost a title. So for like the 21-day reading or 21-day nature classes right now, I'm putting challenge number 1 or challenge number 10 so that I keep track. The one thing that's hard, I would say, with the discussion board classroom setup is I would love for when we have that email, if it went and we click the link, it went directly to that post of the student. Mm-hmm. So instead of having to scroll through. And so that's how I missed too last week was I was trying to scroll through and find everybody's posts.
Right. And I think that is kind of a common request from our teachers that, as we've talked about this and the changes we need to make to the Outschool classroom is like better organization within that messaging and within the classroom itself. So hopefully that will be something that we can do. I know it's something that teachers really are wanting to do. Remember, you guys can type in questions. We'll soon get to those Q&As. And just have a couple more questions for these two here. Is there, like, how did you decide to turn your topics into flex classes? Do you feel like there are certain topics that do better as flex classes, or maybe some that would be really difficult to do as flex classes? Erin Thomas, I'll have you start that one.
I've been able to turn most topics that I want to teach into a flex class. I think sometimes it just, is thinking outside of the box. With most of my classes, I try to include a project component. So really for me, I do the presentation video for the week. So that's not hard, and I try to limit those to like 10 to 12 minutes because most kids don't want to sit there and watch 45. I don't want to sit and watch a 45-minute lecture of somebody just talking. So I try to limit those, and then they have a handout and worksheet to go with it. So that, can lend itself to most anything. But project-wise, it's trying to think, how will this topic work, with doing a project? I would think maybe a public speaking class might be difficult, to do. Unless they were able to record themselves really easily within the classroom, I think that would be, I've always like, that'd be kind of difficult. But otherwise, I can't think of anything that I've thought besides public speaking. Oh, geez, that'd be really tough. Maybe a foreign language as well, like where you really need to talk back and forth in the moment.
Okay. I know we do have a few foreign language flex classes, I think, and I believe they utilize the video quite a bit.
Oh, the record video.
Yeah, like the teacher will talk and the kids will respond via video. But for me, I would think those would be hard too.
Yeah.
Erin Girard, what are your thoughts?
I pretty much have made majority of my live classes flex. That helps with scheduling, and some students prefer the flex for various reasons. Not all students learn the same. Not all learners are comfortable with live classes. And so I do teach flex classes to one student. I have 2 going on right now. And I would say it also helps when I make my videos, or I think with flex classes, it has helped me be more organized. And when I make my videos, it's a good review for me before I teach it live if I need a little refresher, like, oh, what am I going to need to add or make up? And I also will send, along with the recorded video from the live message or live classes, if a student's missed a class, I'll send them the flex video because it is shorter. They're shorter than the live meetings, and I think that also helps just to retain. And my videos are short too. Some of my classes have multiple videos during the week, so those classes, the videos tend to be like 3 to 4 minutes. And I think my longest video is 12 to 13. So I do try to keep my videos very short. And then I have another comment about videos when we get there.
You can leave that comment right here.
Oh, okay, then I'll say it. When I first started flex classes, I did the whole PowerPoint record, but I just found that wasn't it. That I provide the PowerPoints for my students in a PDF form, but I found for me that finding video footage, like from Pixabay or video footage that I've taken myself, and I create videos and I narrate those videos. Like I teach my lessons and I find the videos or images to kind of tell the story of what I'm teaching. My cooking classes, it's video of me doing the recipe. Nature classes, yesterday's challenge was on clouds. So a couple weeks ago, it was cloudy day, so I took video of the clouds and used that as part of my video. And then for me, I think it's more relaxing, like more engaging for me to talk and pretend like I'm having a conversation with the students. So I ask a lot of questions and tell them you can pause the video here and post your answer in the classroom. Like I said, I have that tagline, so we may learn from you. So I try to teach it just like I'm doing a live class. They are shorter, and I have found for me that I have moved completely away from recording PowerPoints to recording movies and using the videos to help. Now, if I'm teaching I have one writing class, so I will record me typing the letters for my Happy Mail class. For my Wild About Book classes that have citations, I recorded myself typing out how to write a bibliography. And so, but those are still video. So I'm trying to make it more dynamic versus static.
Have either of you tried like other tools that make videos more interactive, like Flipgrid or something along those lines? I know we've gotten feedback from parents that, they don't necessarily like, and it's not all of them, but we have heard that just like the PowerPoints with the teacher speaking are kind of boring, where Flipgrid, and I'm sure there's many others, allows you to kind of put that interaction into the video, like with questions and things like that. Have either of you tried anything like that?
I have not tried Flipgrid.
Okay.
I'm always looking for new ways to kind of spice it up. So, it might be something for the future, but I have not used it yet.
Okay. Erin Girard, have you used anything like that?
I haven't. I've heard of it. I've looked into it. And for me, this is my first experience this last year teaching online. So there's been a huge learning curve. When I started doing my first flex classes last November and December, there was so much for me to learn. I had never used iMovie, and now I've learned how to do all kinds of stuff with iMovie. So there's just been such a huge learning curve that I just started using Kahoot, which is a free, and I post the links for activities using Kahoot. So I have done that, but Flipgrid, no.
Okay, and that's perfectly fine, but might be something to look into. I think you could take your videos. It's been a while since I've been on Flipgrid, but I think you can take your videos, put them on there, and then like interject questions into it. So I know you guys are busy, so it's not an expectation. So we've had a couple questions about learning management systems and changes to the Outschool classroom. I'll start with it and then maybe see if Erin and Erin have anything to add. We are not planning on creating a full-fledged LMS anytime soon, and I'm not sure I can foresee, I don't know, us ever doing like a full LMS. One of the things about Outschool is it isn't a traditional school, and you know, so like a grade book, I'm not sure that would be something that we would bring on to Outschool, or at least not in the near future. There are parts of like LMS things that we would like to get our classroom to look like. Like we said, we kind of have an ideas board that we're talking about, and we know that the organization and those sorts of things are something that teachers really have asked for. So, you know, by January 1st, no, there won't be a full-blown LMS. It's not logistically possible yet for us. Like, we're still a pretty small company. And so we hope to have like parts of it, like I said, but there are things that I know are not going to be part of it, at least right now, and possibly in the future. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on that, Julie?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that, you know, we made this announcement about changes to make to flex classes, but we are also committed to making some changes to Outschool in terms of, you know, namely, like you mentioned, organization of communication or organization of resources. Those would be like some key themes that we see from teacher feedback and from, you know, what we're aiming to do as well. But really this change for flex classes is to help to make parents happy, give them a consistent experience. So we're committed to making changes that make your lives easier, make their lives easier. And, you know, after our flex class changes announcement over the next few months, we want to work together with teachers to determine what those changes can be. So like Laura mentioned earlier, if you have suggestions, we definitely send them our way, and we'll be, you know, probably poking some of you and asking you to send them over as well.
So Erin Girard and Erin Thomas, as you worked predominantly with the Outschool platform, do you have any suggestions about like, do you provide grades, and how would you do that, or how do you do that, or you know, what else, like with I guess keeping track of the threads of discussions and stuff like that. Do you have any tips that you would give people who are using something like Schoology or Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever it might be to kind of ease them into it? Erin Girard, I'll have you start.
Okay. I don't give grades. My classes are not necessarily ones that would, like my cooking and baking classes, those are more fun. My nature classes, where we learn about science and nature, it's more nature journaling and learning about a certain aspect of nature. And the same with my reading classes. I don't, but I do provide certificates at the end of the classes for my students. And so that's what I do on the last day. I want to note that the last day of my class, I do post a final message, and then I post to the parents as well. And that was something I started doing after my girls took some flex classes, and gleaning what I really liked and what I didn't like, and how I can incorporate that all together. So for me, that kind of wraps up my class. And And then I also, especially for the flex, because they're flexible schedule and everyone's schedule is different. If a student hasn't completed everything, I instruct the parent how to look through the transcript to click on the class, and the student can continue to post, and I tell them I will continue to answer them even if our class has officially ended. So I don't do grades. And Kai had a question about, I saw on his, I know for me, I just post the discussions. With the classroom, it's not like Schoology or Canvas where you can store everything and just move it to another section. So there is a little bit more of work in that. But I think for me, one of the reasons why I didn't go along those lines, like I said, I make a lot of videos and I try to post the videos, and I think that gets my personality across, and it's not just typed words from the teacher. But that's what works for me. It works for me, and I feel like I'm putting myself a face to and a voice to who I am and what I'm teaching, so to build that relationship.
Excellent, thanks, Erin. Erin Thomas, how about you? Do you have any advice for people who are going to be moving from like a Schoology or a Canvas onto Outschool platform?
Yeah, probably similar to what Erin said. I tell the parents if they would like a grade, that I would be happy to provide that. You know, the students do fill out worksheets, and you know, I can grade their projects. Most parents don't want that. They want a certificate. And as a homeschooler myself, that'd probably be what I would want. So, you know, as far as moving things over, I just really make sure that I stay on top of those threads. You know, I'll post something every day. I go back through every single one. I mean, maybe nobody posted under it, but I look at it every day. You know, and if a student had sent me something privately, you know, I go in and check that. And after the first week, you kind of get the feel for who's going to post in the discussion area, some of them are chattier. Sometimes you have classes where they're talking back and forth, typing back and forth to each other. So, I mean, you know, it's a text-driven society now, so the kids like to just write back and forth. I mean, that's what they're used to. But if you have a shyer student, you know, I make sure I always go back in and check and make sure that they didn't send me something, because I don't always get a notification from Outschool that I've received, you know, something from a learner.
Yeah.
But pretty much just really staying on top of going back through those posts and seeing who has posted underneath there, or, you know, because they can just attach their files. They just attach their file. A lot of the kids make it into a PDF and just attach it right back into the classroom. Their answers, you know, I post a lot of video links, and I always have like kind of a discussion question after the video link. What do you think about this? You know, what's your opinion? And you know who the kids are. I mean, it's the same in a live class. Some of them are always going to have an opinion. Some don't say anything and like turn the camera off. So, I mean, it's the same type of thing. Some of them will actually record themselves on every single post telling you what they think. So it's really like just personality driven. But the same thing as Erin, I post something at the very end of class, just kind of wrapping things up for the parents, and asking them to let me know, send me an email, let me know if you want a certificate and what they want the child's name to read on the certificate, because sometimes you don't, you know, the last name might be different. And so, you know, that works out well. If I have a student that I feel like, you know, if they didn't really do everything, I mean, I don't chase them down saying, do you want a certificate? But if I have a child that I feel like, wow, they put a lot of work into this, but the parent didn't ask for a certificate, I send a message to the parent and say, hey, don't you want a certificate? Your child did a really good job. And usually they'll say, oh yeah, please.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. And kind of in line with what Kai asked about, you know, save lesson plans. We don't have it so that you can transfer between sections. Again, I don't know if that's something that we are going to implement, but everything's saved in your classroom. So
Mhm.
I've been teaching for about 3 years. So if I know that I, have this activity or lesson plan or whatever that I want to give to the kids, I'll just go back and look at previous ones and
Right.
copy what I wrote in there and connect the document or whatever. So it's not as easy, I guess, but they are still there so you can see what you did and access that information.
Definitely. I go back in, like, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel every time we start a new class. Like, if it's another zoology again, I'm going to go back into the class I just taught the month before, and I'll copy, the introduction, and I'll paste it into the new class. I mean, there's no reason to, reinvent something that's working. And I also tell the parents, you can keep posting, and I keep checking. I may not check it every day like I did when we were within the month, but I'll go back in like every other day and look to make sure that there are no stragglers.
Nice. And also in terms of like grades, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily want them. So having it as an option can be a really good thing. Again, I've taught almost 3 years. I teach the older kids. Bless you to those of you who teach young kids. I don't know. But I've had actually very few ask for grades, even in those upper levels where they tend to need them more for their homeschool requirements or whatever it might be. So, it's just something to consider is to ask them, if it is something they want or need. And sometimes the parents just do it on their own, or if you have a kid who's from a public school just taking classes because they think it'll be fun, they might not want or need those either. We have pretty much answered the questions that have been asked. If you guys have any last second ones, you might want to quick put those in, but just to kind of reiterate, as Julie said, we do want to make this transition as easy as we can, both for the teachers and for the families. And so if you have any input, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than willing to listen. I can't guarantee that, all your wishes will come true, but we are very open to hearing from our teachers, particularly about this topic. So I'd just like to close with our two Erins maybe giving some like last minute advice, like what tips do teachers really need to know about if they're gonna tackle flex class? So what words of wisdom would you leave us with? Erin Thomas?
I would say, since it's not live, you can't really see the person's personality. You try to make your personality come through and try to really make a rapport with the students in other ways, commenting on something, that they wrote, or just, sometimes we'll joke back and forth, even just in discussion, or like Erin said, making those little videos, they like that, they'll comment. I mean, just fun thing, just interject fun things into the classroom. They can see your personality, and just try to make it fun. I mean, I've gotten good feedback from parents that their students, they felt like what they said was valued, and that's important to me, and that they felt like, that we kind of had a relationship, between us. And sometimes even in live classes, it's hard to like capture that. But in a month-long flex class, I mean, they might say more things, sending you a private message with their assignment. I mean, I have one child that she's living in China right now, and I've been to China, and so we were, she was asking me what I thought about certain things, and so we just kind of had a little side conversation going on. So I think it's really important to try to capture that when you can, especially if you have a really eager student, and pull them in.
Nice. I really like that. You're mentioning building a rapport with students, that flex classes really are still classes where you can have a relationship with students like you would in a live class. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. Like, it's one of the things we want to make sure that we're providing, because some flex classes have been approached as kind of giving material and having kids learn from it, where we want our flex classes to form those relationships so that kids are comfortable interacting and maintaining Outschool's reputation of being different because of that interaction. That's awesome, Erin. Thank you. Erin Girard, any last minute nuggets of wisdom?
I would say let your personality into your flex classes. Find your own method, find your own groove. For me, that has meant a lot of videos. So I can talk with my students and like I'm carrying on a conversation and model that. And most of the time they do respond back with videos and photos. And as Erin said, building that relationship, getting to know your students. And so find what works for you. I found what's a groove for me, and it works for the students I work with, but it may not work for others. So, which is fine. And I think with my videos, I like doing it. I like having conversations in the video and talking with my students like they were right there with me.
Yeah, excellent. I've heard that from a few teachers. Like, they do it almost like it's a live class.
Mm-hmm.
So they have those interactions and things as well. So you guys have great advice there right at the end. I really appreciate those things that you said, and appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today, especially Erin Girard, who's on vacation. Wow, that's awesome. And also, as we say, with every one of these, if you have other ideas, we'd be happy to think about creating webinars based on suggestions from you as well. And these will be posted on the website, and I believe you post them on, okay.
Later today, we'll see them. I'll send it out in the group as well.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Yep.
Mom, what were you talking about?